American Water Polo.
Hi, this is Damon Newman from American Water Polo, and we're here today with Chris Vidale from Marist College to better understand the recruiting process. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, pleasure taking the time out of your day. So tell me a little bit about yourself and a little bit more about Marist.
Uh, you know, um, about myself. That's always a fun one. No, I'm an East Coast guy. I grew up in Orlando. I played my water polo at Iona College, which was a great experience for me. Being first generation to go to college, I think Iona was a perfect fit for me from size and water polo, and the friendships and everything are lifelong. And it was a great experience. Got to travel and see the world a little bit after playing at Iona. My family is from Trinidad and Tobago, so I have dual citizenship. So I was able to play for their national team and travel around a little bit and meet some people along the way. While in college, I took the time in our off season to go to the New York Athletic Club and train with them. So that just rounded out my exposure with that, and it was just a lot of fun from that aspect. Being an athlete, getting to play D1 in college. At the time when I was playing, I think we had the what was it called? It was like an East Coast elite team or whatever. We'd go to like Princeton every other weekend and play in some games. So that was fun. And I got to play with like guys that were from Princeton and from Brown. So you're playing with athletes that naturally were like, oh, I want to beat you. But then it's like, oh, we're friends now. So that part was really fun doing that in the off season. And it was a great experience. And then from there, ended up in the coaching world. I started doing some youth stuff at Greenwich Aquatics. And then that led me to being the head coach at Greenwich High School. And then Greenwich High School plus Aquatics led me to Marist. And within all that time being at Aquatics and Greenwich High, I was also the assistant coach at Iona for a couple of years with the men's program. And then I had to stop because of coaching boys. But through all of that, I was the assistant coach with the women's program at Iona. And then here we are, and I wear a lot of red now. So now I'm at Marist. Yeah.
All right, excellent. So tell me a little about how can athletes get recruited? How should they promote themselves? How should they start the process?
I mean, I think the best thing that all athletes can do for themselves, regardless of sport, is just exposure and just get yourself out there a little bit more. And it doesn't take, going to a recruiting site and spending money. It really just takes a little bit of know-how. And if you talk to the Harvard coach, Teddy, he always says it. I've been around him for a couple of these chats, and he'll pick his cell phone out of his pocket. He's like, if you have one of these, you can do the job yourself.
Right.
I mean, realistically, you just need to have a proper email that's not, uh, you know, Stacy girl fluff at Gmail. Just, keep it nice and clean. Stacy Werner at gmail.com. So we have something respectable to that pops up on our name. And then if you can, your mom or dad can hold your phone and video a couple things, record some game, even at practice, just you passing with your teammates, throwing it against a rebounder. Just, we're not looking for these videos to be just like, I scored a goal. I scored a goal. I scored a goal. Like, we want to see how it happened. Where was your body position? Where are your legs, your hips? How did everything happen to get you to this process? So it's definitely important that these kids are paying attention to those little things. But I think exposure as well, not saying that you have to do it, but ODP is always helpful. Playing on a club team, having high school coaches and club coaches that will advocate for you and send emails out as well, and just be like, hey, I have this kid. She's a 2021. You might want to take a peek at her. Maybe she's a good fit. Maybe she's not. But at least it puts that athlete on our radar. You can still hear me, right?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay.
So how is how can you expand a little bit more on like those high school and club coaches? How do they play a role in helping the athletes prepare for the recruiting process or to get noticed?
Honestly, my favorite thing that ever happens when I'm on a pool deck is like an assistant coach or a head coach will walk up, just say hello really quick, and we'll have a piece of paper, and I'll have just an Excel layout of like kid's number, cap number, name, age, year they're graduating. And then you're just like, perfect. And it has their phone number and email on it. And then from there, you just watch the game, circle the kid, and go about it. But also just, giving you a heads up. Coaches, I think with our sport still being grassroots and growing, coaches have an idea of this player should be playing at the top four. This player should be playing at, the next, that 5 through 10 range for water polo and so on and so on. So I think as a club coach, their job should be, after coaching these kids from, say, 10 and under, 12 and under, whatever age group, they should want to see their product be in the next level, regardless of where that level is. And I think the parents also would like to see that because, they're spending time and money having their kids go through this process. And not saying that every kid needs to go to Stanford or UCLA, as nice as that would be, but I think there's a level for everybody. And I think the coach could do their kids an extra service just by saying, hey, Marist, I have this kid. I think she'd be great for your program. And then let me make that decision on my own. But at least I had a feeler. Because I think from the more and more I talk to athletes, and just from being a club coach as well, I think a lot of parents and kids don't have a really big they don't have quite the understanding of which schools have water polo, where they're located, and just how to maneuver through the avenues. And I think unless you're just at next level national team player, the kids and the families need a little navigation to figure out, this program's located here, and this is a D3, this is a D2, this is D1. Here are the XYZs of what could happen. And I think that helps because, especially from being from the Greenwich area, to start, those kids immediately, all they think are 3 schools, Princeton, Harvard, Brown, which are exceptional schools. But if they can't get into there, what's next? And I think it's better to, spread that web really wide and then narrow it down as the years go by and you're visiting places and talking to coaches and figuring out what works for you.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good piece of advice. Is cast a wide web, a wide net, and then how that then works out for you. When should these athletes begin that recruiting process? Obviously, NCAA coaches are bound by certain contact rules, but should be freshman year, sophomore year. What's been your experience with that?
I mean, if most coaches kind of depending on your staff and size and financial ability for your program, most of them have an idea of what kids are coming up. And they do that through, going to ODP championships, going to American water polo stuff in Chicago. That happens in the summertime. It's National State Challenge, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so they do that. Beast of the East. So you kind of wait and you watch these games, and you'll notice, all right, that one's a freshman. You circle their name, and then we're just waiting. All right, we remembered we not met, but we saw Monica play at this tournament, and all right, she's a freshman. You kind of just plug that down in your database of things to look out for. But I think from the athletes contacting the coaches, I think once you're in high school, because you are a recruitable athlete, there's nothing wrong with planting the seed. I think they just need to also know the rules and don't get frustrated. Oh, I'm a freshman. I just emailed the Marist coach and he never replied. What a jerk. It's not, I just can't. And with the new rules right now, freshman and sophomore, we can't, but the summer going into your junior year, the gates open up, and then we can start communicating and talking and building that relationship with the athlete. So I think as a freshman, it should be hi, coach, I'm a freshman. Here's my resume as of now, or even at the end of the season, just so you have some stats just to go off of. This is, and we don't need a 10-page essay. We just nice bullet points. Have a headshot of you. So then when I'm on the deck, I can go, oh, there she is. And then your cap number that you traditionally wear. And if you wear a different cap number in your summer season, let us know that, because, just make life as easy for us as possible and yourself, so we're not looking at the wrong number 4. And then, have the heavy hitters. How tall are you? How fast are you? You're 100, you're 50, you're 100, you're 200, 100, 200, whatever you feel comfortable putting down. I'm a right-hander. What position are you? And, contact. Good email of your club coach, email of your high school coach. And then if you have grades available at that time, just put in a little, these are my grades, my first semester, my at the end of my freshman year. So then, again, we're going to look at it and go, all right, A's and B's, perfect. She kind of fits our mold already. Now I can put her in my database and just wait for that time to talk to this individual. And then sophomore year, kind of do the same thing. And then, that sophomore year going into your junior year, you can resend it like, hey, coach, just a reminder, my name is blah, 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 and really looking forward to talking with you come this summer. And then we can start communicating properly.
Okay. Now, you talked a little bit about that communication. How would you recommend an athlete prepare for a potential phone conversation with the coach?
I mean, I always think it's so I personally, I have like my own questions that I ask kids, and
Right.
I like to try and make it as comfortable as possible, because you can definitely feel just the tension of the athlete because they don't want to say the wrong thing and then they're fumbling over words.
Yeah, you're
So
a personable guy, so
yes, I try and make it as comfortable as possible, and I have like say 10 questions that I'll just kind of pick and choose, and majority of these questions have nothing to do with water polo, just because I want to hear their personality and I want to see what's going on. Even on my recruiting questionnaire, one of the questions is, what's your favorite food? And I'll talk to that kid. Why did you pick macaroni and cheese? And then
right.
we'll talk about macaroni and cheese. I have no issues with that, but I think the kids, they just, it's just person to person, loosen up. And I understand that it's, you're worried and you're nervous, and it's my first time talking to this coach and I really like this school, but at the end of the day, we just want to get a vibe for who you are and what you're about. And for me, the questions that I have, to me, it kind of loosens up the kid and kind of just builds in the flow of the conversation, just makes it feel like you're talking to a friend versus like this is a job interview. But I think the kids should also have questions of their own lined up. What is the school like? What is the culture like? What is the culture like of your school? What is the culture like of your team? Just things that are important, because I think at the end of the day, for these athletes, when the season's over, can they see themselves there on a Saturday, studying, living, and just being a normal student? So if anything ever happened via injury, or you just felt like the team wasn't working out for you, could I see myself in this place full time without it? And I think that with the kids, and if you're coming from California or international or Pennsylvania or wherever you're coming from, I just think, you're going to be away from home. Everyone's away from home. You need to see if this could be your home away from home out. And I think understanding that outside of the athletic side of things, I think it's important.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. So now, us, the world, and obviously the United States being in quarantine here in the COVID-19 outbreak, and there is some loss of some potential tournaments, some of the larger tournaments being canceled, postponed. What should a PSA do to be seen?
I think at this point, it goes back to, the games that you at least have some film on, send that out. So if you're a junior right now, like junior becoming senior, it's kind of that time where you really want to be showcasing yourself. And if a tournament isn't going to happen, you have to think of other ways to get yourself out there. So I think, if a club coach is hosting a camp and you realize that, the Marist coach is going to be at that camp via just looking or maybe even coaching, that's a good way to, drive up and be able to see this person. But just staying away from if obviously right now with the climate, money is going to be tight for everybody. I would just stick to, let me go back to my cell phone. Let me send as much film as I can, talk over email, maybe set up face-to-face like this when that time is allowed. And then also, I'm just trying to think of the athletic side of things, wanting to showcase your talents. If your local pool is open, or if you can get in and just shoot a little bit and show a little highlight reel of yourself. Not even goals, just, you leg up and you shoot a 5 meter, you take a catch and shoot, a catch and fake. A lot of times, you watch a kid during warmups and you're like, yep. You can kind of just know,
Right. Yeah, that's good advice. You don't really need a big setup. You don't need something fancy, and just like you said, get in if you have an opportunity to get in a pool. Show me something, whether that's some fundamental skills, and because most coaches know that, hey, this is what I'm looking for, in X, Y, and Z, and you might present that.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I think those are some good ways to go about it, off the top of my head, but it's definitely, it's possible. Like, and I feel bad for those kids because I'm sure they're stressing out and their families are wondering how it's going to work out. And those juniors becoming seniors right now with these tournaments getting pushed back further and further, usually by the end of summer, you have an idea if the coach is going to invite you out on an official visit and see the campus and meet the team. So I think a little bit of the athlete doing their due diligence earlier, preparing themselves, sending that video sophomore year, lets that coach know, like, all right, I liked her at sophomore year. She should be getting better throughout this process. This makes sense. And then just really just making sure you're putting yourself out there and making sure that you kind of give the coach the understanding of, like, I really want to come, and the second I can get in the pool, I hope you can see me play, or if you're going to be at this place, my family will try and figure out the budget and make it work. But the exposure side of it is important. Or if your club coaches, knowing that, you can't fly to New York to come to my camp, Zoom has been killing it right now. So, if your pool has a good internet, or your family can put up a good Wi-Fi, set up the phone and just stream a little bit, and then we can just see you from, the comfort of my couch,
Right.
So there's definitely ways to go about it. I think you just got to get a little creative with it.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Yeah, get creative. That's there's a lot of technology tools out there for people to utilize. So
yeah, I mean,
I
even
guess-
our game, my college games, all my families, I don't even know what the app is, but there's always a parent just filming the game, and there's
Right,
parents.
Periscope or
There we
something.
go, yeah, Periscope, and the
Periscope.
parents are like, "Who's Periscoping this game?" So there's a way.
Right. So, can you give me like a common misconception about the recruiting process?
Oh,
Or maybe from your experience, having been been a recruited athlete, and now having recruiting athletes, you probably talk to a lot of people.
I mean, I would say, just from, I guess from the club side of things, just from remembering those conversations with kids, like, I think you just got to believe in yourself a little bit more, and I think you just got to, trust your trust your process, trust in your abilities, and don't get discouraged when a coach that at a place that you really wanted to go to, didn't commit to you the same way you wanted to commit to them. That doesn't mean that it's the process is over. It just means that your road is just going to be a little bit harder, because maybe your application isn't going to be as secure as you wanted it to be. But I would definitely say, and even from just like an email or phone calls, like, we get so many emails that kids fall through the cracks, and I never want that to happen. And I always feel bad because I'll get a text from one of my athletes that is friends with somebody, and they'll be like, "Hey, did you forget to reply to this person?" And I'm like, I think I did. Tell them I'm sorry, and I'll get right back to them. It's like, I'm not doing it on purpose. It's just, I have two kids, and there's life, and there's games, and there's practices, and there's so many other things. In a program like myself, sometimes your assistants are spread thin too, and some programs don't have an assistant. So, I think you just got to give the coach sometimes the benefit of the doubt, and just, they're human, and they're not avoiding you. They're just piled up with a lot of different responsibilities. And I think the other thing is, like, and I think you can back this up, we get to coach so little, it feels like sometimes, and there's so much more admin that, like, I think if you're like a club coach and high school coach excuse me, and you're like, I want to be a Division I coach, and then, like, you get the job, and it's a great job, I love my job, but then you're like, paperwork, what is this? I want to have a practice,
Yeah, it's more recruiting than it is actually coaching, and then with that recruiting comes a great amount of paperwork and compliance and all that kind of other stuff. So that is also a misconception you don't really think about when whether it's the recruiting or the coaching side. It's
no, I mean, when I was interviewed for the job, it was, can you recruit, can you communicate, and can you coach? And I'm like, I can coach. I can communicate. What's recruiting? No, but I mean, like, but my athletic director's order was specifically recruiting, communicate, coach.
Right.
His coaching is the last part for him. It's all about the recruiting, and the more and more you're doing this, it is a massive part of this process.
Yeah.
And it's important for every sport everywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Hey, final thing. So if an athlete's out there watching the video and they're interested in playing water polo beyond high school, whether it's at Marist or whether it's a club program or whether it's D1, D2, what should their first step be?
Putting themselves out there, having a little faith in their ability, trusting, that they've gone through all the steps and that they've done all the right stuff. But I also think that they should also be realistic. I don't think when I was coming out of college that I would have been like, I never even thought about sending an email to UCLA because it wouldn't make sense, So I think you got to be realistic with your process at the same time. Like there's nothing wrong with being realistic and putting yourself in the best case scenario to succeed. Because at the end of the day, me as the coach, I want you to succeed. Your family wants you to succeed, and you should too. I'm not saying don't reach for a program where you have to grind it out, and maybe by senior year, you're getting the love that you wanted, to the minutes and everything. But you want to put yourself in a position where you are going to be successful, because you have 5 years to play a 4-year sport. And hopefully you never get injured, and it's just 4 years to play a 4-year sport. And you want those 4 years to be fun, with it being the educational side. You're getting the degree that you wanted, figuring out the career path that you want to go down. And then the athletics and the friendships are the icing and the cherry on top of that whole thing. But you definitely need to be realistic in your process. There is a place for you. There is a level for you. And I'm not saying don't shoot for the stars, but I also think being realistic in what you're going after, and pay attention to where the teams travel, what their roster looks like, what's their roster size, all those things, how many people are graduating, because it'll kind of give you an idea of how many athletes the coach wants to bring in. If 2 people are graduating on a 20-team roster, you never know, what that coach is going to be looking for. But if 6 people are graduating, your percentage gets better, and every coach is going to want to get the best athlete for their program. But the coach is going to be realistic with the athlete at the same time, and I think that's only fair that the coach is realistic with the athlete at the same time and says, I think you're great, but I don't think you're a right fit for here. And it's a hard conversation to have. I hate having that conversation, but it's the best thing for my program. And it's also the best thing for the athlete, because, it's water polo, and families are going to have to spend money, and, you don't want to have somebody spending money and all this stuff and they feel like they were lied to. The goal is for the athlete to be as transparent as possible and the coach to be as transparent as possible. But I think it starts with putting yourself out there, believing in yourself, but being realistic to what your ability is, where your academics are, being realistic with that, and then just kind of taking things from there.
All right. Well, that's great. That's excellent. This has been Chris Vidale from Marist College. It's been a real great experience. I appreciate the time. This is Dave Manuma from American Water Polo. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and AmericanWaterPolo.org. Remember, it's important to stay connected to what's important to you. Thanks again, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.